Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Venice. My name is Kathy Avery, and I'm the Director of Religious Education. Today's service is brought to you by the youth and children of this church. We also have a guest today. She is a lyrical coloratura, a native of New York. Miss Tormella has performed numerous operatic roles in, concertized, is that correct? That's a new word for me. Concertized all over the world in Italy, France, Germany, Poland, Israel, and Sweden. She has won numerous grants, awards, and scholarships from venues such as the Rockefeller Foundation, International Vocal Arts Institute, the Metropolitan Opera Guild, and the Altamura Caruso International Voice Competition. She is the founder and artistic director of the Manhattan Lyric Opera Company, which specializes user-friendly cut-down classic operas and operettas and cabaret opera shows with projected sets and super titles. In addition to opera, she has a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo. So you better like her stuff. We are a church that strives to be welcoming, accepting, and open, and we're happy that you've joined us today online and here in person. Visitors, if you haven't already, please stop by the welcome table to fill out a visitor card so we can keep you updated on events. We have refreshments available after our service at the table on the right side. Come help yourself. For announcements today, we have games and lunch on Tuesday the 23rd in Waters Hall. Bring a lunch or a snack. We'll play Mahjong along with dominoes, cards, Scrabble, and we even learned a new game this last week called Five Alive. Thanks. Grieve Not Alone will happen on Wednesday in Astalinder at 1 p.m. This is a bereavement support group, and if you have any questions, please contact Ginny Chapelier. So Social Justice will meet Friday, May 26th at 10 a.m. I'm sorry, I forgot where that is located, but you can find it on Breeze. Also, this is a new one. If you could stop by the Social Justice table on the other side of the porch, there are some petitions to sign, all nonpartisan, although I guess they've taken a little bit of a political kind of veer to them. Stop and help sign them. 2 are to get items on the ballot, 2024 Women's Right to Control Their Health, and a petition for clean water protections. The 3rd is to help Tom Edwards avoid a large financial burden to run for school board again. And our last will come from Miss Serena Canarelli.
Good morning, I'm Serena Canarelli, and I have been asked by the Board of Trustees to take on another project, which I'm kind of excited about, and I hope you all will be too, because it will be our 25th year as a congregation this coming November. So we're going to have a celebration. We are beginning to put together a small committee to do some brainstorming, generate some ideas. We have some other resources to use, but what I would like, and I'm working with Pam Palmer, who is still recovering, but I've spoken to her twice, and we're both very excited about working on this. Ideas, your thoughts. We want you to be involved as much as you can. We're not looking to have a great big committee but we are looking to have a big celebration. So if you can do some thinking, please share your ideas with either me via email or when you see me, and or Pam, and we'll get going. So we'll be ready in November to celebrate 25 years of UUCOV.
Please read your weekly handout for anything else that is upcoming, and if you're watching at home, check UUCOV.org or Breeze. We are now entering into a sacred space. Please silence all electronics. Our service will begin with the prelude.
Thank you so much for inviting me to sing, Lisa. And I'm going to be singing Amazing Grace by Carl Nesbeck and John Nesbeck, excuse me. Haven't had my coffee yet. So John Newton wrote this song, and John Newton, ironically, was a slave captain, but he was very involved with ending the slave trade in England way before America did. He befriended a young parliamentary leader, William Wilberforce. There's a great movie, if you've never seen it, called Amazing Grace, which tells the whole story. And he was on a ship with one of his cargo of slaves, and there was a big storm, and he thought he was going to die. And he said, listen, I vow to God, I know I'm doing bad things. I vow to change my ways, do something good with my life if you let me survive the storm. And miraculously, the ship survives, and he goes back to England. It takes him a while to really give up the slave trade. And he becomes an evangelical minister, which wasn't very popular at the time in England. And then he writes Amazing Grace and befriends William Wilberforce, and together they work with the Quakers to end the slave trade. So he wrote this beautiful song. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now
a little shy. Today's checklist signing is from Joy Harjo.
I want to be a minister soon.
That's okay. Do you want to take a minute and come back? Or you want to just go ahead and do it? Do you want me to do it? Okay. Today's chalice lighting is from Joy Harjo's poem, Remember. Remember that you are all people, and all people are you. Can you help me with this part? Oh, sorry, I forgot my opening words. Come on up onto the little ramp right there. Thank you for joining us today. Today, our service is being led by the youngest of our congregation, and they're going to be talking about different kinds of brains and how we all may perceive and interact with the world differently. I would like to take a moment to introduce you to our young leaders. This is Cecilia Avery. Cece's 7 years old. She goes to first grade at Island Village Montessori. She loves all animals. Her favorite color is green, and she is a fabulous knitter. Emmy, would you wave at everyone, please? This is Emmy Avery. She's 9 and in 3rd grade at IVMS. She plays Minecraft, loves animals, and swims until she turns into a mermaid. Next to her, James or Jimmy? Jimmy, Sean. He's 8 and at IVMS in 2nd grade. What is your favorite thing, James? I forgot.
I just like playing Roblox.
Playing Roblox.
And Minecraft.
And Minecraft. Next is Jonah. Wave, Jonah. Jonah Ahmed is 9 years old and in 3rd grade at Pineview. He enjoys math and sports and is also a black, and petting cats. And is a black belt in Taekwondo and has his own YouTube channel. Leilani, amen. Wave, Leilani. Is 13 years old. She's also in 7th grade at Pineview. Sorry, she's not also. She's in 7th grade also at Pineview. And she's an amazing singer, swims 3 days a week, and is learning Arabic. Next we have Mackenzie Zornak. She's 13. Mackenzie, wave.
I'm 12.
She's 12. Oh, 12. Apologies, I was trying to make her older. Sorry, Mom. Our gathering hymn this morning is 118, This Little Light of Mine, and it will be led by the kids. Feel free to sing along.
Shine.
have time for all ages today is a parable of the long spoons. I'm not sure who taught this for the class a couple of years ago, but Leilani remembered doing this in her YRE class, so whoever taught that, kudos. An old woman is nearing the end of her life. As she closes her eyes one night, she sees a bright light and is transported to another realm. She doesn't pass away just then. Instead, she returns to the living world to find her family gathered at her bedside. She smiles and whispers to her children, "I have seen the great hereafter." "The great whereafter?" her son asks. "Heaven and hell. I have seen them both." The old woman goes on to explain, "I came upon a door, and behind it was hell. What I saw there confounded me. There was a dining hall filled with rows of tables, each table teeming with a magnificent feast. It looked and smelled delicious, yet the people seated around the tables were emaciated and sickly, moaning with hunger. As I came closer, I realized that each person held a very long spoon. With it, they could reach the feast, but the spoon was too long. Though they tried and tried, they couldn't bring nourishment to their mouths. In spite of the abundance before them, they were starving." She continued, "I left this horrid place and opened a new door, one that led to heaven. I was surprised to see that very same scene before my eyes. A dining hall filled with row upon row of tables, and on those tables, a marvelous feast. But instead of moaning with hunger, the people around the tables were sitting contentedly, talking with one another, sated from the abundance before them. Like those in hell, these people were holding very large, long spoons. As I watched, a woman dipped her spoon in a bowl of stew before her, but rather than struggling to feed herself, she extended her spoon out and fed the man seated across from her. This person, now satisfied and no longer hungry, gave thanks and returned the favor, leaning across the table to feed the woman. I suddenly understood the difference between heaven and hell," the old woman said to her family. "It is neither the qualities of the place nor the abundance of the resources, but the way people treat each other. In hell, we are selfish. We would rather go hungry than give people we don't care for the pleasure of eating. But in heaven, we feed each other. We put trust in those around us and never go hungry." Today, we're going to have an offering for a special donation, the Easter Seals of Southwest Florida, also known as Happiness House. Easter Seals provides care and services for people with development disabilities, physical disabilities, and autism, among others. They also provide services for veterans and first responders. Giving is a sacred practice, and when you give to your church, you also receive. Our offering words are offered with levity because giving should always happen with a smile. A clergyman was walking down the street when he came upon a group of about a dozen boys, all of them between 10 and 12 years of age. The group surrounded a dog. Concerned lest the boys were hurting the dog, the clergyman went over and asked, "What are you doing with that dog?" One of the boys replied, "This dog is just an old neighborhood stray. We all want him, but no one of us can take him home. So we've decided that whichever one of us can tell the biggest lie will get to keep the dog." Of course, the Reverend was taken aback. "You boys shouldn't be having a contest telling lies," he exclaimed. He then launched into a 10-minute sermon about lying. Beginning, "Don't you boys know it's a sin to lie?" and ending with, "Why, when I was your age, I never told a lie." There was dead silence for about a minute. Just as the Reverend was beginning to think he'd gotten through to them, the smallest boy gave a deep sigh and said, "All right, he won. Give him the dog." Sorry, I'm a little rusty at this part of the service. I usually leave with the kids, so I forget the stand-ups, sit-downs, and what to say. I apologize. We are now coming upon our celebrations and sorrows. A church is not the building, but the people. As a community of human hands and human hearts, we come together here to share our laughter and our tears. We are entering into a time of sharing our joys and concerns. You can raise a hand and someone will bring you a microphone. Please share information only with permission. Do you have anything you'd like to share today?
Pam is home. She is sleeping or laying down most of the time. It's going to be that way for a couple of weeks. And call her everywhere. She takes phone calls. Thanks.
Good morning. I want to introduce a friend, Carrie. She and I work together at Tidewell Treasures. I'm a volunteer and she's part of the management team. What I've learned is that when you're in the same place, at the same time, on the same days, you end up creating a tribe and you end up making friendships that don't mean you spend every moment with that individual every day of the week. But when you're there, it's sharing of familiarity and good experiences and what's going on in our lives as we share here with soys and jarros. Where did that come from? Sharing joys and sorrows, I think it's appropriate that I share that Carrie is a joy in my life.
My dog right now has cancer and is about to die in a few months. And we're trying to let her live as long as we can. And we're giving her prescription bottles and everything. She's shedding so much skin and everything.
Joan, I'm sorry about your dog. I had a dog I lost and it's very hard, so I'm sorry, okay? But I have joy, and in addition to your YouTube channel, I have an amazing joy. My name is Kendra Muntz, and my older sister, Joanna Laurie, who will be 82 the day after Christmas, has started a local cable channel TV program with a friend, and it's on YouTube, and it's called The New Commons. If you Google The New Commons on YouTube, you can see the first 2 sessions that were 2 weeks ago, Thursday, and this past Thursday. And it's called The New Commons, Creative Conversations for a Flourishing America.
May the love of this community hold all who need love and concern. May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May the work of our hands and hearts support, aid, and comfort all those who hunger or thirst for food or water, justice or freedom. May we never look away when we are needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed. May those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant.
So, Emma Lazarus, I think the mic there, was an American author, poet, and a champion of people who are downtrodden, Jewish refugees and people from the Georgian caucus. And she's remembered for writing this amazing poem, which, if you look at the Statue of Liberty, you can't look at the Statue of Liberty without thinking of this poem.
Give me your time, your book, your autumn glasses, beginning to breathe free. A wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send this coast to I lift my lamp beside the golden door. I lift my lamp
First reading from the book Change Sings by Amanda Gorman. I can hear change humming in its loudest and proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. We have a calling in this world. We are called to honor diversity, to respect differences with dignity, and to challenge those who would forbid it. We are people with a wide path. Let us be wide in affection and go our way in peace. Please be silent for a moment of thought, prayer, or meditation.
song needs no introduction.
I Too by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America.
Good morning, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. Have you ever come away from a conversation with someone and thought, she didn't even laugh at my joke, that was rude? Or maybe, he wouldn't even look me in the eye, I bet he was lying. Today we will only have a time to skim the surface of the topic of neurodiversity, but I am hoping to introduce you to some different perspectives that represent many of us, and probably many of you in the audience, whether you are aware of it or not. Neurodiversity is the natural diversity of the human brain. When we say neurodiversity, we're using this term to represent all of the brains that differ from what society considers the norm or neurotypical. This image is from the World Economic Forum, and you can see that autism, ADHD, Tourette syndrome, dyslexia, dyspraxia, OCD, and mental health conditions such as anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder all fall under the umbrella of neurodiversity. Other groups that are often considered neurodivergent include people with sensory processing differences, people with the extremes of cognitive ability, and people with other developmental disabilities, among others. On the next slide, let's watch a short video to learn more about neurodiversity.
Just like our fingerprints, all our brains are unique. But for the majority of people, their brains are similar enough that there are largely no obvious differences in how they function. They have differences in things like skills, preferences, and styles. But mostly, their brains mean they perceive the world in the same way. But for others, their brains are more fundamentally different. They have differences in things like social understanding, sensory processing, communication, and information processing. These differences are a result of neurological differences, such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and more. This natural variation in our brains is called neurodiversity. Those of us with no neurological conditions are neurotypical, and those of us with neurological conditions are neurodivergent. Neurodivergent people think differently. Their unique perspectives and experiences mean they can often excel at creativity and innovation, have highly specialised skill sets, and an ability to hyperfocus. If embraced, this can be a huge advantage to organisations and society. However, the differences neurodivergent people experience can make life challenging. In order to thrive at work, they often need some simple accommodations. For example, a sensory calm environment to recharge in, or a routine with the same start and end times. Approximately 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent, so not only is embracing neurodiversity critical for a truly inclusive organisation, but it also presents organisations with a huge opportunity.
Now that we know a little bit more about what neurodiversity is, let's talk about why this is important. For most of history, humans have been expected to behave in similar or expected ways. Anyone who diverged from the norm was bullied, hospitalized, ostracized, or even burned at the stake. Neurodivergent people have collectively spent years and years in therapy to learn to understand and behave like neurotypicals. When we accept neurodiversity as a natural part of the human condition, we begin to see that it's everyone's job to understand each other, regardless of neurotype. Neurotypicals have a lot of learning to do to catch up. Let's start today. Some people call diagnoses related to neurodivergence hidden disabilities. This is because often you cannot see what's going on inside someone's head. You may not be able to tell that they're different and might be struggling just by looking. Memes are one of my favorite hobbies, so I'm going to use memes to help explain some of the things neurodivergent people may be dealing with right at this very minute, sitting next to you, that you never realized. This meme has Obi-Wan Kenobi making a very nondescript face. Maybe you can tell what this is supposed to represent, but for me it looks like he could be mad, confused, interested, sad, slightly disgusted, or even constipated. I have no idea. Many neurodivergent people have a lot of difficulty naming emotion on someone's face, especially if they're new to us. Subtitles while watching movies can be very helpful with this problem. Moving on, This meme has a girl walking along holding her ears under a phrase that says "me" in sensory overload, and a band of people on all sides of her playing the trumpet. This slide represents two challenges. The first one is that many neurodivergent people have a different sensory system, so that something that may sound normal to you can sound extremely loud and overwhelming to us, or we may not notice it at all. The same goes for visual input, tactile input, olfactory input, and taste. And number two, most neurodivergent people have a threshold that's lower than that for neurotypical people, for just being completely overwhelmed and needing some time to recharge. All people have a threshold for this. I'm sure you can think of a time where you just done and needed a break. Neurodivergent people tend to reach this point sooner and from different stimuli than neurotypicals. These memes are here to talk about hobbies and special interests. We all have hobbies, right? Often neurodivergent people take it up a notch and really deep dive into our areas of passion. The first meme says, can you imagine saying to Mozart, stop obsessing over that piano, or to Einstein, you talk about astrophysics way too much, try another topic. Passions and special interests can change the world. The second meme shows how we often pathologize the neurodivergent, which makes them other. It shows the same picture of a boy playing with dinosaurs. For the non-autistic child, it's a hobby. For the autistic child, people call it an obsession. Remember, words matter when talking about us. These are memes to remind us that neurodivergent people often prefer not to make eye contact. The first one says, concentrating so hard on the appropriate eye contact to looking away ratio that you have no idea what's being said to you. The second one says, what it looks like when I eye contact at the top and what it feels when I make eye contact at the bottom, with laser beams between their eyeballs. This does not mean we are being disrespectful and not listening. Some people actually listen better when they're not trying to filter the visual input of staring directly into your eyes. This slide is talking about stims. What are stims, you ask? Do you see anyone around you bouncing their leg, tapping their foot? Do you sometimes listen to your favorite song over and over and over? Congratulations, you are stimming. Everyone does this sometimes, but neurotypicals tend to be able to understand when it may not be socially acceptable and don't tend to require it as much for self-regulation. A neurodivergent stims for two basic reasons. The first one being we're happy or excited. For example, tapping to music, bouncing with happy hands, saying a phrase in a movie we like over and over. And the second one would be for self-regulation, when we're overwhelmed for some reason. This can look like rocking back and forth, repeated tapping of hands, screeching, or any number of different behaviors. The behaviors under number 2 are almost always due to unmet needs and difficulty making those needs known. What can neurotypicals do? Accept us for who we are, not the neurotypical version you think we could or should be. If we aren't causing harm, let us be. Presume competence and question your prejudices. On the subject of prejudices, don't raise your hand because I really don't want to know, but how many people think that autistic people lack empathy? This seems to be a common misconception. Let's watch a video on the double empathy problem. This is an idea developed by autistic researcher Dr. Damian Milton.
Did you know that autistic folks don't actually lack empathy? Yeah, today we're going to talk about the double empathy problem. Hi there, my name is Megan. Welcome to Neurodivergent Magic, the YouTube channel for neurodivergent content. If you've heard that autistic folks don't have empathy, it's okay. You're not alone. It's a really popular misconception, but it turns out it's totally not true. According to some recent studies, autistic folks actually are very empathetic, and the misconception that they aren't comes from a couple of different sources. Number one, it makes autistic folks seem a little less human, and that's what society really needed to hear when we were treating autistic folks very, very poorly, and we still continue to do so. Autistic children are regularly exposed to the same behavioral training as dogs, which can include putting hot sauce on their tongues when they display unwanted behaviors, or even shocking them with electric shocks. This treatment is inhumane, point blank, and sometimes people justified it by saying that autistic people didn't feel as much. But now we know this to be completely and utterly false. And this kind of treatment is always wrong. The second reason that we have believed for a long time that autistic folks lack empathy is because of something called the double empathy problem, which is what I really want to dig into today. I want you to picture one car driving west and another car driving east. They are headed directly for each other, and somehow they don't collide. How is that possible? It's pretty simple. Turns out one of the cars is on an overpass and going directly overhead. The two cars just miss each other, even though they're headed directly for each other. This is exactly what happens when autistic folks and allistic folks try to communicate. If you don't know, allistic basically means not autistic. One study, which I will link below in the description, had a group of autistic folks play a game of telephone, and had a group of allistic folks play a game of telephone. They played separately. Both groups did about equally the same. The message got somewhat garbled, but it wasn't completely incoherent. Then this researcher mixed the groups and combined autistic and allistic people and had them play telephone again. Can you guess what happened? Yeah, the message was a total mess. So what does this teach us? It teaches us that autistic folks don't lack empathy, they just lack neurotypical empathy, and they lack empathy for neurotypical people in the same way that neurotypical people would expect it. Autistic folks are really great at communicating and empathizing with other autistic folks, just like neurotypical people are pretty good at communicating and empathizing with other neurotypical folks. If we go back to the car metaphor, a lot of times people like to describe autistic folks as having a faulty engine or going in the wrong direction. But really, autistic folks have an engine that works just fine, and they're headed in the right direction totally. They're just on an overpass. Sometimes when allistic and autistic people communicate, things get missed. And that's not the autistic person's fault. That's just how communication between autistic folks and allistic folks works. That's the double empathy problem. And I think it's really important for us to realize that different communication is not faulty communication. And I also want to point out that this double empathy problem definitely applies to other forms of neurodivergence as well. So if you have ADHD, if you're highly sensitive, gifted, learning disorders, dyslexia, you may experience this as well. Have you experienced the double empathy problem in real life? Tell me about it in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos on neurodivergence every week.
What can neurotypicals do? Language is important. Most autistic adults prefer identity-first language. This means we prefer to be called an autistic person rather than a person with autism. This may be shocking to hear. Maybe many people grew up in a time when the reverse is true, but that's the disease model that many people were taught to accept. The neurodiversity model says many of these diagnoses are not diseases. Usually if one is neurodivergent, their entire nervous system is the core of who they are is neurodivergent. That we are awesome the way we are, and we don't need to feel like we have an affliction or that we are suffering from something. And we certainly don't want pity. However, the most important thing is to respect the wishes of each individual. So you might want to ask someone what type of language they prefer. This is just a slide to illustrate that neurology is not an accessory. There is not a separate person aside from the autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, etc. We are proud to be who we are. This slide is included because people tend to think that they are giving you a compliment by saying, but you're high functioning. Functioning levels are not accepted by the autistic community as valid. When you say you're high functioning, what you mean is, I don't see your challenges. When you say someone is low functioning, what is often meant is, I don't see your strengths. These are neurotypical labels that most neurodivergents eschew. This slide is an example of things that people sometimes say when they think they're meaning well, but are actually very insulting and disrespectful to neurodivergent people. One thing that you shouldn't say is, you don't look autistic, ADHD, depressed, or like you're struggling. Everyone's a little autistic, scattered, or anxious sometimes. My grandson's neighbor's friend's son-in-law is autistic, ADHD, epileptic. So I know how you feel, think, etc. No, you don't. We're all unique. And finally, I want to wrap up with the last two slides. This is a comment from Temple Grandin, who you may recognize as an autistic advocate. She says, "What would happen if the autism gene was eliminated from the gene pool? You'd have a bunch of people standing around in a cave, chatting and socializing and not getting anything done." We know that autism is strongly genetic and that autistic traits have helped further the human race since the beginning of time. Did you know that between 1% and 2% of the population is autistic? The last meme says, "Look at me, I'm a neurotypical. I give weird hints about things instead of just telling people." So you can see, we all have areas that we can work on. Thank you so much for giving us your attention today. I know you may have more questions on all of this, but I will need some downtime after this presentation, so you're welcome to send questions to Kathy Avery, and she will forward them to me. Please be patient and understand that I may reply at a different pace than neurotypicals expect.
Thank you so much, Leilani. That was very informative. Very informative. Our closing hymn today is a favorite of Leilani's, number 346. "Come sing a song with me." Stand as you're willing and able, please.
Today we will extinguish our chalice and have our benediction from the Lorax by Dr. Seuss. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.
All right, and our postlude, if you would stand, we will sing "They Love Surround Us."